My name is Nolan Rourke. I'm 34. Youngest son in a family where the top floor was already crowded before I could reach the elevator button. At Voss Biopharma, I wore a title that sounded powerful on paper, Senior Strategic Director, but in a boardroom full of legacies and nepotism, I was the tolerated nephew. The quiet one. The one they expected to obey. And for a while, I did. The call came at 6:17 a.m. Not a calendar invite. Not a polite assistant ping. Just 2 words from the managing director himself. My office. Now. The elevator ride to floor 88 felt longer than usual. Glass walls. Black marble. The kind of silence that echoes when careers die. Inside the boardroom, Calder Wyeth stood like a judge behind his desk, blazer draped over one shoulder, half sipping a neat pour of something expensive. Beside him, legal counsel, eyes unreadable. Behind them, a screen paused on an email I hadn't seen yet, my name, timestamped, flagged in red. You're suspended, Wyeth said. Flat. Brutal. Effective immediately. No explanation. No conversation. Just 3 words that cracked through the silence like gunfire. I opened my mouth. He raised a hand. This is non-negotiable. You will issue a public apology to my daughter tonight, at the gala. The email appeared on the screen, an internal note from Alara Wyeth accusing me of unethical interference in protected research. I hadn't even touched her division. But I had asked questions. And I had seen a slide she tried to hide. This company values order, he added, sipping again. Not rebellion. I stood there, heart pounding. Security stood ready. My keycard buzzed once. Red. Either you apologize to Alara, or you resign. Tonight. Publicly. A beat passed. Wyeth leaned in, voice lower now. The last Rourke who crossed this company died forgotten. You can join him. That line hung in the air. Heavy. Acidic. The ghost of Reed Rourke, my uncle, the man who built this company's foundation, echoed through the room like a warning. I turned without answering. Down the elevator. Through glass doors. Rain needling the pavement outside like the world was being erased one drop at a time. By the time I reached the sidewalk, my phone vibrated. Alert, ownership structure updated. Your access level has been modified. I clicked. My name was gone. The shares Reed had left me, the controlling block, the one clause in his will that had always been a mystery, had been reassigned. Legally. Silently. Like I'd never existed. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. But I knew what was happening. This wasn't punishment. It was premeditated. Erasure, executed clean. The doorman stared at me longer than usual when I entered my building. Eyes twitching slightly. He'd seen the news. Or worse, he'd been told to expect me. The elevator mirror didn't lie. I looked like someone who'd already lost. But it wasn't over. They want a show? They'll get the whole production. There's a saying, don't pick a fight with someone who has nothing left to lose. Unless you're absolutely sure they have nothing left to gain. I walked into my apartment. Dark. Silent. And then I saw it. My office door was cracked open. The lamp was on. And the safe I kept bolted to the floor, the one only I knew about, stood wide open. My badge went dead. And that was when I realized this wasn't about an apology, it was about erasing me. The door creaked when I pushed it open. No broken locks. No smashed windows. Just that one unnatural detail, my safe, dragged out from the corner, left half open like a wound. The air smelled faintly metallic. Cold. Too still. I didn't touch anything. Instead, I pulled out my phone, turned off Wi-Fi, yanked the battery. There's a rule I learned early in boardrooms and back channels. If something feels too quiet, it's because someone already spoke for you. I stepped back. Cut to black. An hour later, I was at my secondary unit in the West Village, burner laptop, offline storage, no cameras. It was where I went when I needed to disappear inside my own city. I cracked open the last encrypted packet I had from Reed, my uncle, mentor, the only person who ever taught me how to protect myself from our own family. Inside, a time-stamped ownership map from 6 months ago. My block of control shares? Still intact. So how did they disappear in less than a day? I pulled up audit trails. Cross-referenced signature hashes. Elara's name popped up where it shouldn't have twice. One link dated a week ago. One from 2 days before I asked her about the asset reallocation she buried in slide 47. They weren't just coming after me. They had started before I even knew to look. I met Mara Klein in the corner of a dead coffee shop near Chelsea. She wore black jeans, sunglasses, and a hoodie like she expected someone to be watching. She wasn't wrong. She handed me a USB. I shouldn't have copied this. What is it? Your name. Used across 4 approvals. None of them came from your IP. I slid the drive into the burner. Files opened. Internal memos. Approval stamps. My digital signature. But the timestamps were wrong. Mismatched by milliseconds. Cloned with precision, enough to fool the board, but not someone trained by Reed. Why are you helping me? I asked. She looked away. Because I ran the audits last quarter. Elara's numbers didn't match. I raised it. 2 days later, I was reassigned to newsletters. Silence. Mara leaned in. Whispered, I think she's laundering shares. Dubai, Luxembourg. Paper trails tied to shell companies. If I'm right, she's moving entire blocks to vote against Calder. That stopped me cold. Against her own father? She nodded once. Or through him. Either way, he's not the one calling shots anymore. A car alarm went off outside. Sudden. Sharp. Mara flinched. I stood, walked to the window. Nothing unusual. Just a man stepping out of a silver Range Rover, talking on Bluetooth. But something about the way he looked up, just once, directly into my window, set my nerves alight. Time to go, I muttered. Back in my unit, I paced. Breathed shallow. There's always one step before exposure, isolation. You strip someone's credibility, access, then lock them out of their own story. I wasn't going to let that happen. I dug out the last clean drive. Reconstructed my credentials. Triggered a trace script on the internal chain. If they'd used my key to transfer shares, I'd know where it happened and when. 5 minutes in, the screen blinked. User, E.Wyeth. Action, legal transfer authorization, Timetale signature embedded. I froze. She had full access. Not proxy. Not cosigner. Owner. That's when the phone buzzed. Block number. No voice. Just a message. Apologize tonight. Everything else disappears. A second ping followed. This time, an image. The inside of my apartment. The office door open. My safe visible. The timestamp, 10 minutes ago. I hadn't been alone. I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Not rage. Not fear. Clarity. You don't bury someone unless you're afraid they'll dig up something real. I pulled on a black coat, grabbed the drive, slid the gunmetal laptop into my backpack. This wasn't about an apology anymore. This was war. The threat wasn't coming from the managing director anymore. It was coming from his daughter. The gala was hosted inside the Voss Sky atrium. All glass and chrome and curated lies. Everything about it said power, control, legacy. Everything it wasn't anymore. I entered through the East Service corridor, avoided the valet entrance, ditched the jacket. No badge. No name tag. Just a quiet suit, black tie, silent intent. Mara was already inside, tailing Elara's assistant. We'd synced watches. 10 minutes. One shot. A string quartet played something elegant and unnecessary. The CEO gave a toast I didn't listen to. My eyes locked on Elara, standing beneath the chandelier, laughing, untouched. No cameras pointed at her. But 2 security guards flanked the exits. Watching. Not protecting. Expecting something. I moved fast. Cut through the crowd. Past a hedge fund VP too drunk to notice me. Slid past the server trays. Then, Elara turned. Saw me. She didn't flinch. She smiled. Didn't expect to see you here, she said. Did you? A sip of champagne. My father's being generous. You still have until midnight to apologize. Is that what this is? I asked. An apology party? Her smile sharpened. It's a celebration. Of what? She leaned in. Whispered against my ear, voice silk, of you learning where the real power lives. I stepped back. Elara, I said, keeping my voice even. You didn't just restructure shares. You moved them. Illegally. Through offshore fronts. Mara found the trails. A blink. Not panic. Amusement. Nolan, she said, louder now. You really should be careful about who you trust. Some people will say anything to feel relevant. There it was. The gaslight. The setup. I felt it click around me, the silent ring forming. Guests turning. Heads tilting. The story already written before I stepped in the room. I moved fast. Through the kitchen doors. Past the clatter of silver. Into the cold hallway that led to the freight stairs. She followed. Elara, I said, backing toward the wall. I know about the shell core. The dual signatures. You forged my key. And you did it to take everything, not just from your father. From the board. She stopped. You still don't get it, she said. You were never the target. You were the cover. Silence dropped like a guillotine. I moved through your name because no one questioned you. The harmless Rourke. The board's errand boy. No votes. No spine. That was your gift. A cold rushed down my spine. You want to own the company, she said. Then own this, you were the weakest link, and I used you to break every chain. My phone buzzed. I looked. One notification. Trigger ledger activated, access logged at 1943. Not from her device. From mine. 2 blocks east. I glanced at the wall, security feed blinking overhead. She saw it too. You cloned my signal, I said. She just stared. Always assume they're 3 moves ahead. And always leave a 4th they can't see. I smiled. I wasn't the only one watching. Downstairs, chaos cracked the air. Someone shouted. Sirens howled outside. The projector screen in the ballroom flickered. Static. Then, Reed Rourke's face appeared. Recorded years ago. Clean suit. Black eyes. Words razor sharp. If you're watching this, it means they've moved against my heir. That means Nolan. Elara turned white. The feed cut to black. Gasps filled the building. The last audio echo rang. He controls the kill clause. And if triggered, you lose everything. I walked toward the doors. Elara didn't follow. The glass hall split around me. Eyes wide. hands frozen on champagne flutes. But no one stopped me. Not yet. I watched her disappear into the crowd. And that's when my phone lit up with a notification she never knew existed. The city looked different after midnight. Sharper. Quieter. Like it was holding its breath. I cut south, switched cars twice, ditched the phone in a storm drain, and took the subway 3 stops past where I needed to be. By the time I reached the server bunker, my pulse had finally slowed enough to think. The place was buried beneath a defunct data center in Long Island City. No signage. No cameras. Just concrete, steel, and a biometric lock Reed insisted on installing himself. He used to say, if you want to hide something, don't make it invisible. Make it boring. The door opened. Cold air spilled out. Blue LEDs lit the narrow corridor. Racks of silent machines. The hum of something alive and waiting. I slid the drive in. The screen flickered. Then the file appeared. Trigger_ledger_RR01. I stared at it longer than I should have. Reed's handwriting flashed in my head. His voice. Calm. Precise. Always 3 steps ahead of whoever thought they were smarter. I clicked. A video loaded. Reed Rourke sat at a plain desk. No tie. No smile. If you're seeing this, he said, they've already crossed the line. My chest tightened. I built this company knowing one day it would attract people who confuse ownership with entitlement. The charter has a clause no one ever reads. A failsafe. A kill switch. The screen split. Legal language. Dense. Surgical. The clause nullified any voting shares acquired through misrepresentation, proxy manipulation, or forged digital credentials. Retroactive. Automatic. Brutal. But only if activated by the rightful controlling owner. Me. Reed leaned closer to the camera. Nolan, this isn't revenge. This is correction. Power doesn't respond to noise. It responds to precision. The video cut. A countdown timer appeared. 47 hours 59 minutes and 12 seconds. 48 hours. After activation, the board would have that long to challenge it publicly. If they failed, the shares reverted. Permanently. If I didn't go public before the clock hit 0, the clause locked itself and burned the evidence. Reed had built it like a dead man's switch. I exhaled slowly. There's another saying I learned the hard way: when you're given a weapon, it's already too late to pretend you don't know how to use it. My phone vibrated. A secure line. Mara. They were in my apartment, she said, breath tight. Drawers emptied. Laptop gone. Are you safe? For now. But Nolan, listen. I pulled something before they wiped me. Elara didn't act alone. I leaned against the rack. Talk. She used shell entities to move shares, yes. But the authorization didn't come from Calder. It came from legal. A pause. Marcel Ingram. The name hit like a blunt object. Former board counsel. Quiet. Disappeared 6 months ago after a medical leave. He's not gone, Mara continued. He's been ghost authorizing transfers from abroad. Cayman routing. Clean enough to pass internal review. So Elara's the face, I said. Marcel's the hand. And Calder? Useful. Until he isn't. Silence stretched. They know you're active, Mara said. Someone accessed the compliance vault 10 minutes ago. They're looking for something. They won't find it, I said. Not unless I let them. I hung up. The clock ticked. 47 hours 31 minutes and 8 seconds. I pulled up the activation console. My thumb hovered over the biometric pad. And then, The lights flickered. Once. Twice. The hum shifted pitch. I turned. The far door was ajar. That wasn't possible. I hadn't unlocked it. A shadow moved between the racks. I stepped back, heart hammering. "You're late," a voice said. Marcel Ingram emerged from the aisle. Thinner. Older. Smile carved sharp. "You always were Reed's contingency," he said. "I wondered when you'd finally show your teeth." "What do you want?" I asked. He gestured to the screen. "To make sure you don't press that." I laughed once. Dry. "You're standing in a room with no exits and no jurisdiction." He shrugged. "Ownership isn't about rooms. It's about timing." His phone buzzed. He glanced down. Went pale. "What did you do?" he whispered. I smiled. I started the clock. The alarm began to sound, low, steady, irreversible. And for the first time, Marcel Ingram understood something Elara never had. If I was going to burn their kingdom down, I had less than 48 hours to light the match. I didn't go to the press conference. Not yet. Instead, I rented the lobby of the building where Voss Biopharma was founded. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A cathedral of glass and cold ambition. No board oversight. No cameras feeding back to compliance. Just me. And the clock. The elevator doors opened. Empty. But the hum of security sensors told me I wasn't alone. I set up 2 projectors. One fed the original chain of title. The other displayed the trigger clause. The vault logs. Everything Reed had left me. Half an hour before the appointed hour, my phone buzzed. A secure ping. Public invitation, Voss board hearing at 7:45 p.m. But I wasn't going for a hearing. I was going for control. Power isn't given. It's claimed. I repeated it under my breath, a mantra my uncle used when the world seemed piled against your ribs. I opened the folder the drive had generated. Forged signatures. Fraudulent transfers. Shell accounts in Dubai. Cayman records rerouted through Luxembourg. It was all there. Real. Explosive. And the legal world would chew on it like carrion. I hooked the laptop into the building's Ethernet, a direct link to outside networks, and prepared to stream. Then the first alarm hit. Not from me. From outside. A screeching wail that split the quiet. I cursed. Security guards surged in, not at me, but at the front entrance. Riot vests, scanners, the whole 9 yards. And behind them, reporters. Flashbulbs. Drone lights. Breathless shouts about Nolan Rourke resurfacing inside the belly of the beast. I didn't flinch. Instead, I hit play. The feed started with Reed's recording. His voice was methodical. If this message is triggered, share ownership reverts to the rightful heir. No embellishment. No theatrics. Just fact. Then the ledger flashed on every screen. Shares. Votes. Control. And suddenly, the word suspended lost all meaning. I stepped back as the public feed grew legs. Regulators logged in. Legal firms alerted. Journalists typed with ferocity. One reporter said over the live mic, "This is bigger than any merger scandal, bigger than insider trading. This is corporate identity theft on a ruling family level." An aide rushed in. Wide-eyed. "Sir," he said, breath quick. "They're calling this broadcast unauthorized." I smiled. Exactly. Then the sirens outside brought a new layer. Not police. Not corporate security. Federal agents. Their badges gleamed under fluorescent lights. I watched them flood the lobby. A tall agent with an FBI crest stepped forward. Mr. Rourke, he asked. I didn't hesitate. Yes. We're freezing assets tied to all parties mentioned in your broadcast. We need a statement. I could see it in his eyes, the thrill of a bigger hunt. Someone with a score to settle. Someone who lived for unraveling knots others thought permanent. What's your basis? I asked. He didn't pause. Violation of securities law. Possibility of forged documentation. And fraud. High-profile case. We need your cooperation. I didn't flinch. I handed him the drive. Start there. His jaw twitched. He didn't expect cooperation. He expected games. I gave him the truth. And truth is explosive. Truth doesn't care about permission, I murmured, watching the broadcast ripple outward. Halfway through the feed, the door crashed open. Elara. Fuming. Dark dress. Sharp heels. Eyes like lightning ready to strike. She scanned the room. Found me. Turn it off, she whispered. Rage wasn't calm. It was intent. You know that won't work, I said. Dad will kill you, she snapped. I tilted my head. Your father is already collateral. Behind her, Calder Wyeth entered. Not in control. Not afraid. Just watching. That's when the second alarm dropped. Not electronic. Human. Marcel Ingram, cuffed, flanked by 2 agents, shoved forward. He spat on the floor as they marched him past. Rules, he snarled, are meaningless if you don't own the game. I looked back to Elara. Her face faltered. The cameras kept rolling. The public feed was unstoppable. The ledger. The clause. Reed's testimony. My name on every frame. That's when I realized the final twist wasn't about exposure. It was about who watched the exposure happen. The lobby screens crackled. Then went dark. Not due to outage. But because another feed appeared. A live court order. Signed. Filed moments earlier. It read. Immediate injunction. All broadcast terminated pending judicial review. I stared. At the judge's name. At the timestamp. At the tiny emblem in the corner. It wasn't Elara's doing. Not Calder. Not Marcel. It pointed to one person. Someone inside the family. Someone nobody expected. A second ping hit my phone. An encrypted message. Nice move. But you just activated an even bigger war. I looked at the courtroom feed. Then at Elara. She didn't look victorious. She looked terrified. And that was when my phone lit up with a file named Phase 2, Undo Rourke. They called it a coup. I called it clearing the board. 3 nights later, the courtroom was empty. The cameras gone. The noise dissolved into headlines I wouldn't read. The injunction had bought the board time, but regulators had already pried open every secret door Elara and Marcel had hoped stayed locked. I walked through the empty chambers, the echoes of gavels long spent. It smelled of polished wood, dry air, and finality. An agent cleared his throat. You can leave whenever you're ready. I nodded. No celebration. No vindication. Just steps toward fresh air. Outside, the sun was attempting sunrise, thin streaks of gold in a bruised sky. It reminded me of something my uncle once said, sunrises are borrowed. They come at a cost. Today, the cost had been steep. A stone bench overlooked the plaza where protesters and press once crowded. No one was there now. Only the hum of traffic and the flutter of a flag in cold wind. I exhaled. Court orders had been issued. Shares reverted. Compliance investigations spread through every satellite office of Voss Biopharma. Elara's accounts frozen. Calder's status reduced to advisor with no authority. Marcel? Disbarred and under separate inquiry. But none of that mattered. Not really. Because the biggest battle I fought wasn't for company. It was for truth. A reporter once told me, integrity leaks slow. But when it floods, it destroys everything in its path. I knew that as I turned from the plaza and walked toward the subway station. A text blinked on my phone. Mara's name. Meet me. We need to talk. I hesitated. Old instincts whispered, trust no one. Old wounds pressed at the edges of my breath. But Mara had helped expose the shell cork trail. She'd risked herself by stepping forward. That counted for something. I answered. Where? Pier 45. Noon. I arrived early. Wind ripping through the pier, tugging at my coat. A few joggers passed. Kayaks bobbed in the Hudson. Nothing felt tense. Nothing seemed alive. Then I saw her. Mara. Leaning against a railing. Eyes tired. A cup of coffee half drunk and cooling in her hand. I approached. Sit, she said. What's this about? She tapped her phone. A map appeared. Dozens of points lit up across New York. Each marked a subsidiary. A research partner. A biotech liaison. We traced more than Alara's shell accounts, she said. My eyes didn't move. Her network was bigger. Wider. A shadow board pulling shares from other companies through proxy agreements. Tax shelters all over Europe. I didn't speak. She continued. I saved the files. But there's something else. Her voice tightened. A name keeps showing up. She hesitated. Then said it. Rourke Foundation. Not Reed's. Not mine. Something older. Something buried. A quiet entity dotted across offshore holdings. Tangled with intellectual property rights, clinical trial assets, and legacy funds untouched for decades. She handed me a folder. Inside, a handwritten document. A will. Not Reed's. Another Rourke. Older. The founder of the first Rourke Publishing Company, my great-grandfather. And in that will, a clause. Any direct heir who reestablishes corporate integrity gains controlling interest in all affiliated holdings, including the foundation itself. My head snapped up. Mara watched my face. You didn't just trigger the clause in Voss. You triggered something much bigger. I blinked. Then laughed. Soft. Surprised. The darkest battles create the brightest dawns. But only if you survive them. I took a breath. I need to see the originals, I said. She nodded. We walked toward the ferry. Later that evening, I stood on my apartment balcony overlooking the river, the skyline glowing like scattered embers. The wind cut cold. Sharp. I thought about everything that had happened. The suspension. The fake accusations. The stolen shares. The dead man activation. The courtroom. The reveal. Regulators knocking on every door Alara built. It was finished. But not ended. I closed my eyes. There's a saying, when you take a crown, you inherit all its shadows. Today, I inherited more than a company. I inherited a legacy, restored, not seized. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message. Encrypted. Short. Simple. They weren't expecting this. The sender was unknown. For a moment, I felt that old prickle, someone watching, waiting, ready to strike. But this time, the prickle didn't bite quite as deep. I stepped back inside. Lights off. The city murmured below. I wasn't done. I was just beginning. Not as a king. Not as a puppet, but as someone who understood this truth. Power unchallenged becomes tyrannical. Power reclaimed can rebuild worlds. I set the phone down and walked into the quiet. Because some battles are won in noise, but the war is sustained in silence.